Look, I don't need to say a lot of here, but this Crumble Cake, aka Streusel in German, is gonna blow your mind because it's super easy and it's delicious. The recipe consists of 3 easy steps: the base dough, the crumbles, and the filling. I remember this recipe because when I was very small, my grandma used to make it when there was a lot of leftovers. Usually it was around the end of the summer. For the base dough, we're gonna weight out 550 grams of cake flour. And I believe that using a scale is a really good option, because if you use, for example, cups, you can get different measurements. Set your flour bowl aside and prepare another bowl where we'll be mixing our yeast with milk. Add 8 grams of yeast into the bowl, followed by 350 milliliters of whole warm milk. You can also add room temperature milk, but warm milk will make the process faster. Scoop 1 tablespoon of icing sugar and put it to the bowl, where you can mix it with your spoon or spatula or whatever you have by your hand, until the yeast is dissolved. You can set the yeast mixture aside for about 10 minutes or until it gets bubbly. While the yeasty milk is being activated, we should add 1 teaspoon of salt into the flour, followed by 50 milliliters of neutral tasting vegetable oil. And lastly, don't forget to add 1 large egg to the flour so it will be easier to work with. When the yeasty milk is already bubbly, pour it to the flour and grab a spatula or a spoon and mix it well. After some time stirring, it will become very gooey, therefore you can start using your hands. Make sure that you scrape all the dry flour from the side of the bowl. It will make your job easier and the dough will be less sticky. After about 7 minutes, the dough will look something like this. Set the bowl aside. You can let it brew for about half an hour. It really depends how warm is in your room. If you want, you can also proof it in the oven. Making the filling couldn't be easier. You basically don't have to do anything. Wash a couple of plums based on how large is your baking sheet. And I know that using a little bit more sour plums will make a better cake. For the crumble topping, weight out 150 grams of flour. Then we can add 125 grams of unsalted butter. You don't have to use the scale, you can just try to measure it out by your eye. Tear your scale into 0 and you can pour in 100 grams of granulated sugar. It's time to get to do some dirty work. Use your fingers and crumble up the butter with the flour until the crumbles form a really similar shape. Use both of your hands so you will have your job done quicker. About half an hour later, we can check upon our dough. It should be doubled in size and light and airy. Sprinkle your working surface generously with flour and scoop that bad boy out onto the working surface. There is no need to knead the dough because of course we don't want our cake to be flat. Tamp it down gently with your fingertips into the desired shape. You should match the size of the dough to the baking sheet you are gonna use. Also, don't forget to take a knob of butter and spread it thoroughly onto the baking sheet. This step might be a little bit tricky, but do not get scared, it's not something that you can mess up. Try to spread the dough evenly onto the sides by pressing it downwards and making it even on every inch of the dish. Poke it with your fingers evenly to create a little dents. Now it's time for the filling. Place your plums cut side up onto the dough, pressing it downwards a little bit so they stick to the dough. I'm using brown sugar for this cake because personally I think it makes a way better flavor. Sprinkle it evenly on the plums until you get a whole coverage. And now it's time for the key ingredient to this recipe, and that is cinnamon. Sprinkle it thoroughly onto the whole dough and top it up with a generous amount of crumbles to cover every inch of the cake. And now just grab your finished dish and you can preheat your oven into 180 degrees Celsius. When it has reached the needed temperature, put the bad boy in for just about 35 minutes. And that is it. I hope you're gonna try out this simple recipe, and I hope to see you next time. And you know what? I love you.